Hello, my friends. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I didn't notice anything wrong at first. That's the part that scares me the most now, how ordinary it all felt. I was driving home after a late shift, the kind that leaves your head buzzing and your body hollowed out. The highway was mostly empty, the asphalt glowing dully under spaced-out streetlights. My coffee had gone cold in the cup holder. The radio murmured low enough to be background noise. Just another night drive. I remember thinking how calm everything felt. That's usually when it starts. I merged onto Route 9 at 12:38 a.m., confirmed by the dashboard clock. The road cut straight through a stretch of forest that locals avoided after dark. They said the exits were confusing, that people missed turns and ended up lost for hours. I'd driven it dozens of times. Tonight, though, the forest looked wrong. The trees weren't swaying. There was no wind. Their branches leaned inward, arching over the road in a way that felt deliberate, like they were closing ranks behind me. The darkness between them wasn't natural. It was too deep, swallowing the edges of my headlights instead of reflecting them. I turned the radio up a notch. Static crackled, then resolved into a voice. Not music. A man speaking slowly, carefully, like every word mattered. "You are now entering the listening portion of the drive." I frowned and reached for the dial. The voice continued. "Do not adjust your radio. Do not leave your vehicle. Remain attentive." I twisted the knob hard. Nothing changed. The dashboard lights flickered once, then steadied. The clock still read 12:38. The first exit sign appeared a mile later. Exit 17, River Road. I relaxed. That was normal. River Road led back toward town. I didn't need it yet, but seeing something familiar eased the tightness in my chest. I passed the exit without slowing. 2 minutes later, I saw the same sign again. Same scratches, same bent corner. Exit 17, River Road. My foot eased off the gas. "That's not possible," I muttered. I checked the rearview mirror. The road behind me was long and empty, no sign of the exit I'd just passed. Ahead, the highway stretched on, unchanged. I told myself it was a mistake. Duplicate signs happened, human error. Then I passed exit 17 a third time, and a fourth. Each time, the forest grew closer to the shoulder. Each time, the sign looked a little older, more rusted, more tired. On the fifth pass, something had been added beneath the lettering. Small text, handwritten. "You missed it." My phone buzzed. I nearly dropped it when I picked it up. No signal bars, no notifications, just a single open app I didn't remember launching. A voice recorder. It was playing. My voice came through the speaker, thin and distorted. "I don't know how long I've been driving," it said. "The exits keep repeating. If this is still recording and you're hearing this," the audio cut off abruptly. The timestamp read 12:38 a.m. My grip on the wheel tightened until my fingers ached. I hadn't recorded that, had I? The road began to slope downward, not steeply, just enough that my ears popped slightly. The streetlights disappeared, replaced by darkness lit only by my headlights. The beams felt weaker now, shorter, as if something was absorbing the light ahead of me. I tried the brakes. They worked. That should have reassured me. It didn't. Because when I pressed the accelerator again, the car didn't speed up. The speedometer needle stayed locked at 55 miles per hour. I shifted gears. Nothing changed. The engine hummed steadily, unbothered by my panic. Then, the radio clicked back on. "Segment 2, the same calm voice said. "Driver awareness test." My chest tightened. "Turn off," I whispered, spinning the dial again. "Please identify the sound." A noise rose beneath the engine hum, a rhythmic thump, thump, thump. At first, I thought it was a flat tire. Then I realized it was too slow, too deliberate. It sounded like something being struck against metal. From underneath the car, I glanced at the passenger seat. There was something there that hadn't been there before. A folded piece of paper, yellowed, creased like it had been opened and closed many times. I didn't touch it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. The thumping grew louder. "Failure to respond will be recorded," the radio voice continued. I reached for the paper with shaking fingers and unfolded it. Written in my handwriting were the words, "Do not stop. Do not look under the car. Do not trust the mirrors." I laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. "Okay," I said. "Okay, sure." The laughter died quickly because the rearview mirror flickered. For half a second, I saw headlights behind me, then faces, pressed together inside a car that was too small to hold them all. Their mouths moved in unison, forming silent words. I snapped my eyes forward again. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. The road flattened out. A new sign appeared ahead. Exit 0. Last stop. I didn't slow down. The exit ramp peeled away to the right, descending sharply into darkness. As I passed it, I felt a pressure change in the car, like something heavy had just climbed inside. The passenger seat dipped. The smell hit me next. Stale breath, damp fabric, something old. I kept my eyes locked on the road. "I'm not stopping," I said aloud. "I'm not looking." The radio crackled softly. "Good," the voice said. "Most people fail at this stage." The thumping beneath the car stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Time began to behave strangely. The clock still read 12:38, but the sky ahead lightened slightly, like the beginning of dawn frozen in place. My fuel gauge hadn't moved. My phone battery stayed at 47%, but my body felt wrong. Heavy. Tired in a way sleep wouldn't fix. I blinked and missed things. A billboard I didn't remember passing. A bend in the road that left my stomach lurching as if it had appeared out of nowhere. Then I saw myself. Standing on the shoulder, I slammed the brakes. The car slowed, too slowly, but enough that I could see clearly. It was me. Same clothes, same face, eyes wide and terrified. As I rolled past, the other me banged on the window, screaming silently. I didn't look away fast enough. In the mirror, I saw it run after the car, mouth stretching wider than it should, skin pulling tight over its bones. The radio sighed. "You left something behind." I started to remember things I hadn't lived. Crashes, screams, hands pulling me from wreckage, the sound of metal folding. The car jerked violently. Something underneath finally gave way. The front end dipped, scraping against the asphalt in a shower of sparks. I fought the wheel as the car slowed to a crawl. Then it stopped. Dead center of the road, the engine cut out. The radio fell silent. I sat there, breathing hard, staring at my reflection in the windshield. It smiled back. I hadn't. "Get out!" a voice whispered from the back seat. I shook my head. "No, you can't finish the drive like this." The passenger door opened by itself. Cold air rushed in. I smelled rain, blood, burnt rubber. I closed my eyes. When I opened them, I was standing on the road. The car was gone. So was the highway. I stood alone in a clearing surrounded by trees, their trunks scarred with old impact marks. Shards of glass glittered in the dirt. At the center of the clearing lay a wrecked car. My car. Inside it was a body. Mine. I backed away, heart hammering. Footsteps approached from the darkness. Figures emerged. Drivers, dozens of them, each carrying the weight of unfinished journeys. Some were transparent. Some were wrong in subtle ways. The calm-voiced man stepped forward. "You stopped," he said gently. "I didn't know," I whispered. "No one ever does," he replied. "Do you want to continue?" I looked past him. A road stretched onward, forming itself from shadow and memory. Endless, waiting. I nodded. "I'm driving again now. The radio's quiet. The exits don't have names anymore. Sometimes I see myself on the shoulder, waving me down. Sometimes I hear thumping beneath the car. The clock still says 12:38. If you're driving late at night and the radio starts talking instead of playing music, don't answer. And whatever you do, don't stop. Because some drives don't end. They just replace you." I always thought road trips were supposed to be fun. The freedom of the open road, a tank full of gas, a playlist to match every mood. That's what I thought when I left my apartment that Friday morning, driving east on Route 66 with nothing but a backpack, my car, and a vague plan to reach the next small town before nightfall. My friends thought I was crazy to do it alone. I thought they were just boring. At first, it was perfect. The sun bounced off the asphalt, the wind coming through the cracked windows, music blaring. I was in my element. I even stopped at one of those roadside diners for pancakes, chatting briefly with the waitress who had a strange habit of staring at the horizon like she expected someone or something to appear. I brushed it off. People act weird sometimes. By late afternoon, the perfect day started to unravel. The sky darkened unnaturally fast. Clouds rolled in thick and heavy, blotting out the sun like a shutter closing over the world. I tried to shrug it off, blaming it on typical mountain weather. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, the sky behind me was still sunny. The sun I had left behind seemed to hover over the horizon, golden and calm. I blinked and shook my head. Strange lighting happens sometimes. The road became empty. I hadn't seen another car for miles. At first it was liberating, but soon it felt wrong. Too quiet. I turned up the music, trying to break the silence. That's when I noticed it. The signs. The mile markers were backwards. I passed one that said, Kingston, 15 miles. Then 10 minutes later saw the same sign reading, Kingston, 35 miles. My stomach sank. I tried to tell myself I was tired, my brain playing tricks. I glanced at the GPS, no signal. Not unusual in remote stretches, but then my phone died, completely, instantly, even though it had been fully charged. The battery icon showed 0% as soon as I looked. A shiver ran down my spine. I considered turning around, but the road curved in a way I didn't recognize. The mountains ahead looked wrong, taller, darker than I remembered from the maps. The forest seemed thicker, the trees pressing in on both sides. I slowed down, and then I saw it. A figure standing on the shoulder. At first, I thought it was a hitchhiker. Tall, thin, wearing a long coat. But there was something wrong. It wasn't waving. It wasn't moving naturally. It just stood there, staring. My headlights barely illuminated its face, and I realized it didn't have one. No features at all, just smooth, pale skin where a face should have been. I slammed on the brakes. My tires skidded over the asphalt. The figure didn't move. It didn't blink. And then, impossibly, it was closer. Too close. My heart hammered in my chest. I shifted into drive and sped past it. But when I glanced in the rearview mirror, it was running alongside the car, impossibly fast, gliding across the road without touching it. Panic set in. I floored it, my hands shaking on the wheel. The road twisted. The trees seemed to lean over me, their branches scraping the roof. My headlights flickered. The radio sputtered to life. At first, just static. Then, a voice, soft, distorted. "You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here." I slammed the dial, but the voice didn't stop. It got louder, overlapping with itself, echoing in my head. I covered my ears, screaming, and then it cut out. Silence. I kept driving, desperate for a town, a gas station, anything. That's when I saw it. The first building I had passed all day, a gas station, old, abandoned, windows boarded up. But the pumps, they were dripping something dark. I slowed down. The air smelled like burnt rubber and something metallic like blood. I could see shadows moving inside, shifting unnaturally. I didn't stop. I couldn't. Night fell fast. The road disappeared into darkness. My headlights revealed nothing but trees and fog rolling in thick. And then I saw them. Cars, hundreds of them. Old, rusted, parked haphazardly along the roadside. Broken windows, missing tires, doors hanging off hinges. But it wasn't the cars themselves that scared me. It was the people. Figures. Pale, twisted, some with limbs bent backward crawling along the hoods, dangling from trees, faces stretched into silent screams. And they all looked at me. All of them. Empty black eyes, grinning mouths that moved in ways mouths shouldn't. I screamed and floored it. My car bounced over potholes, tires screeching, but no matter how fast I went, the cars and figures multiplied. Around every bend, more. They didn't move like humans. They slid, sometimes disappearing into the fog and reappearing ahead, blocking the road. I swerved, trying to escape, and the forest opened to a small clearing. A gas station, or what used to be a gas station. The sign read, Route 66 Last Stop, neon flickering. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out of the car, trying to think. Inside, the station was empty, shelves lined with old cans and dusty bottles. But there was a smell, rotten, sweet, like decay and sugar mixed together. And in the corner, a figure sat, small, hunched over, wearing a hat that shadowed its face. It turned slowly to me. "You were supposed to stay on the road," it said, voice like gravel. "But you stopped. Now, you're one of us." I didn't wait. I bolted, ran to my car, the keys gone. My heart sank. I spun around and the figure was closer, joined by dozens of others, sliding silently over the asphalt, crawling through the grass. I ran into the forest, branches cutting my face and arms, ignoring the pain. Behind me, the whispers rose, chanting in a language I didn't know, yet somehow understood. "Join us. Stay. Never leave." I tripped and fell. Mud covered me. My flashlight had fallen, the batteries dead. I lay there, trembling, thinking I was going to die in the dark, surrounded by those things. Then I saw the lights, faint, flickering, coming from the road ahead. Real lights, headlights, another car. I screamed, waving my arms. The car slowed and stopped. A man leaned out, asking if I was okay. Relief flooded me. I ran to the road, but as I got closer, I realized something horrifying. The driver had no eyes, just empty sockets, staring at me as he smiled. I froze. My instincts screamed to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The driver tilted his head, and then I heard it. The whispering, the scraping sound, the footsteps of countless others moving through the trees. I screamed and something grabbed me from behind, cold, skeletal hands. I twisted, kicked, clawed. The fog thickened. I felt myself being pulled back into the darkness. My vision blurred. The last thing I remember was looking at the highway. Lights fading, the hum of the car engine mixing with the endless whispers. I woke up on the side of a road miles from where I had been. My car was gone. My backpack, my phone, nothing. Just a stretch of empty highway, sunrise painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. I ran, no destination, just running. Eventually, I found a gas station, a real one, with people, with life. They called the police, but no one believed me. No one could explain why my car wasn't listed as stolen, why my GPS showed I had never left the city limits, why the highway I had driven didn't exist on the map. I've tried to tell people, friends, family, strangers. I even wrote it down in a journal. But the story sounds insane, unreal. Yet every night, I hear the whispers in my dreams. Every time I drive alone, I see figures at the edge of the road, shadows moving in the trees. And sometimes, if I get too close to a back road, I swear I can see that gas station in the distance, flickering neon, waiting for me. I don't drive alone anymore. I avoid highways at night, but I know it's only a matter of time before the road calls me back, because Route 66 never forgets, and neither do they. I had been looking forward to this vacation for months. After a brutal year at work, I needed to escape the city, escape responsibility, and just breathe. When I found the old lakeside cabin in the Smoky Mountains online, it seemed perfect, remote, rustic, and completely private. The pictures were almost too good to be true. Dense forests, a crystal clear lake, and a wraparound porch that promised peaceful mornings with coffee and quiet evenings watching the stars. I arrived late on a Friday evening. The sun was dipping below the trees, casting long shadows across the gravel driveway. The cabin was even more charming in person, though something about it made me hesitate, an unshakable feeling that I wasn't entirely welcome here. I shrugged it off as fatigue from the long drive. After unpacking, I decided to explore the area around the cabin. The lake was just a short walk through the woods. The water was still, reflecting the sky and the silhouettes of trees perfectly. I took a few photos trying to capture the serenity, but I felt like something was off. I thought I saw a figure moving along the far shore, tall, thin, and motionless. When I blinked, it was gone. I told myself it was a trick of the light and headed back to the cabin. The first night was unsettling. The forest around the cabin was alive with sounds I couldn't identify. Low rustles, soft thuds, the snap of a branch far away. But the thing that got to me most was the silence in between. At 2 a.m., I woke to the sound of someone whispering my name. I jumped out of bed, flashlight in hand, and searched the cabin from top to bottom. No one was there. Only the wind, or so I tried to convince myself. The next morning, I decided to hike one of the nearby trails. It was meant to be a quick morning walk, just to stretch my legs and enjoy the scenery. The forest was beautiful, but it quickly grew darker as I ventured deeper. The trees thickened, blocking sunlight, and the path twisted unnaturally. Every now and then, I thought I heard footsteps behind me. I turned, expecting another hiker, but saw nothing. The feeling of being watched gnawed at me. I stumbled upon a small clearing where an abandoned campsite sat, rusted fire pit, toppled chairs, and a thin layer of leaves covering everything. What caught my attention was a series of crude carvings on the trees, circles, strange symbols, and what looked like tally marks counting up endlessly. My stomach churned. I took a few photos and decided to leave. As I stepped back onto the trail, I realized it was gone. The path I had just walked didn't exist anymore. Every tree looked the same. I tried to retrace my steps, but the forest seemed to rearrange itself, leading me deeper and deeper. Hours later, I found my way back, or so I thought. I stumbled onto the cabin, but something was different. The porch steps were broken, the front door had scratches that hadn't been there before, and the cabin smelled wrong, metallic, like blood. I called out, but there was no answer. I sat on the floor trying to calm down. My phone had no signal, and the battery was dying. Panic was creeping in. That night, I barely slept. The whispering returned, louder this time, and it wasn't just my name. I heard other voices too, faint cries, laughter, and urgent warnings. I pressed my hands to my ears, but I could still hear them, coming from the walls, the floor, even the air itself. Around 3 a.m., I saw movement outside my window. The shadows of people, or something like people, shifted between the trees. They didn't move naturally, more like the forest itself was shaping them. The following morning, I decided to leave. I packed what I could into my car and drove down the gravel road, praying to see the main highway. But the road twisted unnaturally, turning back on itself. I felt trapped, like the forest itself had swallowed the path. Then I saw them, figures standing between the trees, watching me. There were too many to count. Their faces were obscured by shadows, their bodies too elongated to be human. They didn't move, but I felt them everywhere. I tried to speed past them, but my car wouldn't start. The engine turned over briefly, then died. I was surrounded. My mind raced. The figures began to move, gliding silently, effortlessly, closing in from all sides. I screamed, pounding the steering wheel, but it was useless. They didn't respond to sound, only to my fear. In desperation, I ran into the forest, abandoning the car. The trees pressed in on me, branches scraping my arms and face. Every direction looked the same. I called out for help, but only my voice returned, distorted and hollow. Then I saw it. A small pond I hadn't noticed before. The water was black and perfectly still. Something in the depths reflected me, but wrongly. My reflection was twisted, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. I stumbled back, tripping over roots and rocks, and fell into the pond. When I woke, I was back in the cabin. Morning light streamed through the windows, the fire was still burning, and the cabin smelled normal. My car was gone. My phone had signal again. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last. From the corner of the room came a whisper. My name. Soft, deliberate, and unrelenting. I packed again, this time ready to leave, but the forest had other plans. The road was gone. The cabin seemed to shift subtly every time I looked away. Night fell faster than it should have, and the whispers grew into a chorus. I couldn't tell where they were coming from. I barricaded the windows and slept sitting upright, clutching a baseball bat, knowing I wasn't alone. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time lost meaning. The cabin became my prison. Every mirror, every reflective surface showed something I didn't recognize. My face, yes, but twisted, haunted, almost like a warning of what I would become. The forest wasn't just outside, it was inside me now, in my mind. One morning, I heard a knock at the door. Tentative, polite, human. I screamed, but no one answered. When I looked through the peephole, there was nothing. Only a shadow moving between the trees. I realized then that leaving was impossible. Not because of the forest, not because of the cabin, but because whatever had been following me wasn't just a thing out there. It was part of me now. I've tried to write this down, hoping someone will find it. Maybe it's a warning, maybe it's a plea. If you ever see a cabin by a lake in the Smoky Mountains, don't go there. Don't think you can escape. And whatever you do, don't look into the water, because once it sees you, it knows your name, and it will follow you, always. I should have turned around the moment I saw the Ravencrest Hotel. The building rose from the fog like a black monolith, its Gothic architecture warped by years of neglect. I was tired, cold, and had been driving for almost 10 hours, but there was something about the way the sign flickered in and out. Ravencrest Hotel, vacancies, that made me hesitate. My GPS insisted this was my stop for the night. I shouldn't have argued with it. Parking my car in the cracked lot, I noticed the wind had fallen completely silent. No trees rustled, no birds called. Even the fog seemed to pause as I approached the entrance. The double doors groaned when I pushed them open, revealing a lobby frozen in a past century. The carpet was threadbare, dust coating the edges. Heavy, faded velvet curtains hung limply, their colors dulled to gray. Behind the desk sat a man who looked older than anyone should live to be. His skin was pallid, almost wax-like, and his eyes were pale gray, as if cataracts had eaten them alive. He didn't greet me. He simply extended a skeletal hand, and from it dangled a brass key. "Room 606, he said, his voice dry, like leaves breaking underfoot. I swallowed. Something about his gaze made me uneasy, but I nodded and took the key. The lobby was silent, except for the tick of a large wall clock that sounded impossibly loud. I turned toward the hallway leading to the elevator, and the smell hit me. A mix of damp wood, mildew, and something metallic that made my stomach churn. The elevator doors creaked open, revealing a cab lined with cracked mirrors. I stepped in, pressed the button for the 6th floor, and the doors closed behind me. The ride was slow, agonizingly so, each floor marked by a metallic groan that sounded like bones bending. Then, halfway up, the lights went out. I was enveloped in complete darkness. My heart hammered in my chest. I fumbled for my phone, but there was no signal. A soft whisper reached my ears, almost too faint to catch. "Don't leave." The lights returned. The doors opened onto a long, narrow hallway. The wallpaper was peeling, revealing dark stains underneath, almost like old blood. Room 606 waited at the very end, the door slightly ajar. I should have run when I saw it. I should have. But curiosity, or maybe stupidity, drove me forward. Inside, the room looked empty at first. A large canopy bed dominated the space, the sheets yellowed with age. Dust covered the furniture like a blanket. In the corner stood a full-length mirror, slightly tilted. At first glance, it was just a reflection of the room, until I saw a movement. I froze. My reflection wasn't mimicking me. My reflection was smiling, and not in a friendly way. Its lips stretched too wide, revealing teeth too sharp to be human, and its eyes, hollow black pits, stared straight into mine. I stumbled back. The mirror rippled like water, and a cold, wet hand shot out, grasping for me. I slammed the door shut, fumbling to lock it, but the key wouldn't turn. The handle shook violently in my hand. Behind the door, I heard whispers, low and malicious, saying my name over and over. The hours, or was it minutes, passed like a fever dream. I tried everything, screaming, pounding on the door, even climbing out the window. The window refused to budge. The room felt alive, walls breathing, shadows stretching toward me. And the mirror. It wasn't just a mirror anymore. Faces appeared within it, dozens of them twisted in terror, their mouths open in silent screams. At one point, I thought I saw the old man from the lobby standing behind me in the reflection. But when I turned, the room was empty. Only the mirror remained, rippling, calling to me. I tried to sleep, convinced that daylight would save me. But I never slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I was awake in the same room, same cracked mirror, same suffocating air. The hotel had trapped me in a loop, feeding on my fear. Something broke through the mirror one night. A figure, wet, pale, and humanoid, but wrong in every way, stepped into the room. It moved unnaturally, its joints bending backward, its mouth opening wider than any human should. It whispered in my voice, "You can't leave." I ran for the door, throwing my body against it. But the hallway was gone. The walls twisted around me, forming corridors that weren't there before. Each door I tried opened to another room identical to mine. The mirror was always there, and the figure always behind it, smiling. I realized with horror that the hotel was alive. It was feeding. Each guest became part of it, trapped forever in its corridors, in its mirrors. The whispers grew louder, surrounding me, until I couldn't tell which voice was mine. Days, or maybe years, passed. I no longer knew. I wandered the hallways, always returning to room 606. The mirror's surface shimmered constantly, showing me faces of past guests, their expressions frozen in terror. Sometimes they tried to reach out, screaming silently. I wanted to scream back, but no sound escaped. And then, one day, or night, the old man appeared in the hallway. His eyes, still pale and lifeless, glimmered as he smiled. "Room 606, he said softly. "You belong here now." I understood. I was no longer just a guest. I was part of the hotel now, part of the walls, the mirrors, the shadows. The hotel had claimed me, and it would never let me go. Somewhere deep in the corridors, new guests arrived. I watched them from the mirrors, their reflections perfect, until the hotel took them. I saw them screaming as they became part of the walls, the floors, the shadows, and I knew my voice would whisper to the next victim, "Don't leave. You belong here." Now, I wait. I wait for the next traveler seeking a warm bed, a roof over their head. And I smile behind the mirror, my teeth too sharp, my eyes hollow, ready to welcome them to room 606. Because the Ravencrest Hotel never forgets a guest. It never lets anyone leave. I've been driving trucks for nearly 20 years. I've seen all kinds of weather, road hazards, and the strange, lonely stretches of highway that seem to swallow people whole. But nothing I've experienced compares to what happened on that last run. The run that should have been routine. The run that turned my life into a nightmare I still can't shake. It started with a call from dispatch late on a Thursday evening. "Pick up at the old Harris warehouse, Road 47, midnight, priority shipment. Be careful, okay?" The voice on the other end sounded strained, almost fearful, but I didn't think much of it. I'd been on the road long enough to know that dispatchers sometimes get tense over nothing. By the time I arrived at the warehouse, the sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving nothing but a pale smear of twilight. The building itself was a hulking skeleton of concrete and rusted steel. Broken windows reflected the fading light like blind eyes. The lot was littered with debris, weeds, and the occasional rusted-out vehicle. Not exactly the safest place for a high-priority shipment, but the paperwork checked out. I climbed out of the truck, the gravel crunching under my boots, and approached the trailer waiting to be loaded. It was a refrigerated unit, older, with patches of rust but mechanically sound. There was no one there. No forklifts, no staff, not even a flickering light except for a weak bulb above the entrance. The air smelled of cold metal and decay, and I felt a twinge of unease I tried to shake off. The trailer doors groaned as I opened them, revealing the cargo inside. A single, heavy wooden crate. Odd, I thought. The shipment paperwork said multiple crates. This one was sealed, unmarked. I leaned closer, and that's when I noticed it. Scratch marks along the top, as if something had been trying to claw its way out. I shook my head. Probably rats. But the scratching didn't stop. My stomach turned as I realized the sound was coming from inside the crate. It was soft at first, almost tentative, like the nails of a small animal against wood. But it grew louder, more insistent, more human. Yeah, right, I muttered to myself. Just your imagination. I loaded the crate onto the trailer, locked the doors, and climbed into the cab. The engine hummed to life, warm air spilling through the vents. I rolled out of the lot trying to shake off the feeling that I was being watched. The highway was empty. Too empty. No other vehicles, no distant lights, no hum of civilization. The GPS glitched as soon as I hit the road, displaying routes that twisted in impossible ways. But I pressed on. Hours of driving were ahead, and I had a deadline. Then the whisper started. Drive. Don't stop. I froze, gripping the wheel. My hands were clammy. The sound was faint, almost inaudible over the engine, but unmistakable. It came from everywhere and nowhere, all at once. I glanced at the trailer in the side mirror. Nothing, of course, just the cold metal box. I tried the CB radio, hoping someone else would answer, but static was all I got. My phone, dead, no signal. My heart pounded. Fog rolled in thickly, curling around the tires, obscuring the road. And then I saw them. Shadows. Human-shaped, but wrong. Limbs too long, torsos bent at impossible angles. They stayed just at the edge of the headlights, moving alongside the truck, never stopping, never blinking. My breath hitched. The crate rattled in the back, loudly, violently. Something inside was clawing at the walls, pounding from within. My stomach lurched. I slammed my foot on the accelerator. Drive, or we take you. The whisper was louder now, echoing inside the cab, inside my skull. I pressed on, eyes wide, scanning the road. The highway bent and twisted in ways that made no sense. Mile markers disappeared. Signs were blank or covered in strange symbols. Snow began to fall despite the forecast, thick and wet, clinging to the windshield. Figures ran across the road, their faces featureless voids. I swerved, tires screeching, narrowly missing them. The crate shifted again, slamming to one side. My hands shook uncontrollably. Hours, or maybe minutes, passed. Time became meaningless. The fog never lifted. The road stretched endlessly. My fuel gauge dropped rapidly despite driving conservatively. And then, out of the gray mist, I saw it. A bridge. An old steel bridge spanning a dark river. The structure was rusted, the boards warped. The railings bent outward, as if something had tried to break through. I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. But I had no choice. The crate's pounding intensified, the whisper screaming now, deafening. I drove onto the bridge. The boards groaned under the weight of the truck. I looked into the mirrors. Shadows were everywhere, writhing in the fog, reaching up as if to grab me. The crate began to shake violently. And then, I swear, I saw movement inside, A hand, pale, clawing at the wood, pressing against the walls from within. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded, tires screeching, metal grinding against rusted steel. But it didn't stop. Not completely. The bridge swayed beneath me, and I realized with horror that it was bending, twisting, impossibly long. The river below wasn't water. It was black, viscous, reflecting faces, screaming faces, writhing in agony. Drive, or join us. I slammed my foot on the gas, tears streaming down my face. The truck surged forward, bouncing over warped boards. The crate burst open. I froze. Inside, nothing. Just darkness. Nothing moved. The pounding had stopped. The whispers, gone. The fog lifted, revealing a straight, empty highway, normal looking. Sunlight filtered weakly through clouds. The bridge, the shadows, the river, all gone. I pulled over, shaking. My hands were raw from gripping the wheel. I dared not open the back of the trailer. When I finally looked, the crate was empty. No sign of what had been inside. No fingerprints, no claw marks, no residue. Just a normal, empty wooden crate. I drove the rest of the way in silence, never speaking to anyone. Dispatch had no record of anything unusual. The paperwork checked out perfectly. No one believed me. And yet, at night, when the road is empty and the fog rolls in, I can still hear it. A whisper, soft, insistent, impossible to ignore. Drive, or we will come for you. I've never stopped driving. I've kept my headlights on every mile, every hour, because I know the truth. One day, if I ever stop, whatever was in that crate will catch up to me. Until then, I keep moving, always moving. I hope you enjoyed the story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more terrifying tales.